Okay, good morning, everyone. My name is Christina Koch, and I'm the facilitation team lead for the OSG and PATH projects. And I'll be providing hopefully some highlights of what we've been doing over the past year. Before I get into that, I want to quickly introduce the team. Also, continuing the theme of maps, these are the current members of the Research Computing Facilitation team for OSG Services. Like most of our infrastructure, spread across the United States. And we all have different backgrounds and different tenures with the project that I think is really helpful in creating just different backgrounds and experiences that we bring to this effort. So to organize my talk, I'm going to steal from the mission statement that was also featured on Frank's slides and start with the first half. OSG is a consortium dedicated to the advancement of all open science via the practice of distributed high throughput computing. So what are we as the facilitation team doing to advance open science through distributed high throughput computing? So the main thing we do, the baseline of our activity, is supporting researchers using these services, the OS pool, access points, the OSDF. I'll talk after the morning break, about these services in more detail. So if you want to know what this actually means in terms of infrastructure, stay tuned. But what I want to talk about mainly in this section is the different activities we've been doing to support researchers on these services. So as I was preparing this talk, I realized that the last all hands meeting, we had only been doing monthly training and regular office hours for a couple months. It feels like it's been forever, but it had only been a couple months, and now we've done it for over a year. You can see the bottom right graph is the increase in attendees to office hours, which is really exciting. We've introduced a lot more training topics. And so those were newer activities for us in the past year. We've also continued our regular practice of providing personalized orientations for new users of our services. That number is also up on the slide, and continuing to update our documentation. So these are standard and increasing support channels that we provide to researchers. And what we'd like to do next, kind of combining some of these things, increasing ways for researchers to learn and practice these skills on their own, is self-serve tutorials. So taking this training and making it someone that people can do really easily on their own, not necessarily coming to our monthly events. Another highlight of the past year was the OSG School being back in person. So this is a regular summer training event that we do. Had to be online in 2020 and 2021, but we were back in full force this past summer. Getting ready for the 2023 version in a couple of weeks. And what was really exciting about this event was not just being able to bring people back together and do more kind of community building that's easier to do in person, but that we took some of the lessons and changes we made during the pandemic when it was online and incorporated that into the format of the in-person event, which was really about, we now teach people skills and tools, but the emphasis is that you leave with something right, that you're making real progress on your real research as part of the school. So this is yet another map of where everybody came from, including some attendees from Mali and Uganda. This is through a partnership we've had with NIAID and their African Centers of Excellence in Bioinformatics program. So continuing, how are we reaching out to find researchers to advance their science on the services that we support? We've been to several different events, presented at a couple different panels and webinars. This is something that I think Peter's previous question was very timely. We are thinking a lot about what keeps people from finding out about us, getting started on our resources if it's going to advance their science. And so we want to continue reaching out, trying new things, doing a little more work targeting domain science, potentially AI as applications, as Frank mentioned. And we're going to be forming an advisory board that can also hopefully give us helpful input about how to reach underrepresented communities in this space. All right, more new things. If you come to us and there are some aspects of your workload, of your science that aren't a good fit for the Open Science Pool, we now have a dedicated additional HTC service, the PATH facility. And so you'll learn more about this later in the morning. Brian Lynn is going to be giving a sales pitch for the PATH facility. So I won't go into the facility itself in detail right now, but what I will say is, as the facilitation team, we've been working a lot on getting the initial users started, developing all the process documentation type infrastructure so that people are well supported when they get started, and folding them into our regular office hours. And so what's next for this aspect of our activities? More users. So definitely talk to us at any point today if this is of interest to you. Another new service that we're really excited about, and will also be featured later this morning in a talk and a demo, is what we're calling OS Pool Notebooks, which is a Jupyter Hub interface to HTC resources, particularly the services that we run. And I think this is going to be really helpful for us in terms of accessibility. You don't need to put anything on your computer. You can just access HTC resources from a browser. It's a little bit of a friendlier interface than just the black and white terminal. And we're going to be able to, we have used it for a bunch of different training events. So more to come from this space as well. Okay, so those are all the activities of the facilitation team that we're doing in support of our services to advance the science of the researchers that come to us. So I wanted to, in the middle of this talk, just take a pause, be like, what research is happening? What is the open science that we're supporting? So there's a nice breakdown on the right here of the domains that are using the OS pool, I think is where I pulled the dashboard I pulled this from. And there's a nice project browser on the OSG website if you want to look at specific projects or domains. And then I wanted to highlight a couple examples. First, promo for our talks later today. We'll have Riesling Larson and Chi-Kwan Chen speak about their work in biological sciences and astronomy. So stick around to the end of the day because they'll both be very, I think, interesting talks about the scale that's possible on the OS pool. The PATH and the OSG websites have a lot of really great user stories. So this is one of them from the OSG school last year, where we had some of the participants give lightning talks about their work and how it might fit on the OS pool. So this is a really fun one because you can see the variety of what's possible in research from, AI, physics, video analysis. There's a really cool one about like mapping where invasive species are coming in. So definitely check that out and some of the other stories that are on the website. There's also a great one about a UChicago chemistry faculty member who's done great things on the OS pool. And then I wanted to highlight, I feel like sometimes these events can be kind of heavy on the physics and the astronomy side of things, but that some of our biggest users of the OS pool are in biological sciences, doing work in informatics, drug discovery, simulation type work, and you can look up more information about these projects again on that OSG projects link. Okay, so that's the highlights for advancing open science via the practice of distributed high throughput computing and our facilitation activities. So now The other aspect of what we do as the facilitation team is support the second aspect of this mission statement through the advancement of the state of the art. So what does that look like for us? So Marone mentioned this idea of translational computer science, and I really see the facilitation team's role as being the conduit between the development of new technologies and features as part of the PATH project with the research community. And so if things are developed, we're documenting, finding people to test, moving things from the developers to the community, but we're also taking feedback, hopefully, from the community and bringing it back and saying, you know, it would be really nice if, or this would be really transformational if we could have this kind of functionality in the services and tools that we're providing. So some highlights, Frank already mentioned this first one, the request for data privacy and being able to share files in a more private, authenticated way on the OSDF, which is now rolled out and we're kind of treating as the default for people. I think in the access point diagram, you saw this idea of bringing external resources to an access point. And we've had, I believe one of our afternoon speakers actually has helped us test how that works and what that capability looks like in production. One of the topics that the facilitators have gotten a lot of feedback about is challenges of troubleshooting and finding out information about jobs. And so that's another area where in the next year, I think we're hoping to partner with the HD Condor team, the software team, you know, all the teams to see what we can do. What do we need to develop new tools? Do we need to have a certain kind of service that will help people, help researchers, empower them to understand what's happening with the work they're running and, you know, solve problems on their own. So that ties nicely into my last slide. I think I've talked a lot about the activities of the team that I lead, specifically the 5 of us in research facilitation, but this is really like a big team effort. We don't run the services, the production services team does, the software team does. And so that's a huge part of what we're doing. And I think in the past year, we've had some changes in that area as well. So some of you may recognize that I'm not Lauren Michael, who used to be leading the facilitation team. So I stepped into this role last fall. We've hired a new facilitator. We're strengthening coordination between the teams. Our team is working more closely with the Collaboration Services team, which Brian didn't get a chance to talk about, and neither did I, but is an important aspect of supporting open science at a larger scale in terms of the collaborations. So really, I personally think we've done a lot to try to integrate what we're doing together. We're adding support for campuses, and I'm working a lot with Tim Cartwright, wherever he's sitting on that. And so that makes this both really rewarding and I think is as important to our success as the technical aspect of what we're doing. And it's really a fun time where it's a really great experience to be working together with all the folks on the team on this project. So with that, I will take any questions.